The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
So here we are. Boom. We're in episode number 8 of the My Backstory podcast with Aaron Alexander from Align Podcast, man. So is it Align Podcast, or is it you have the Align Podcast and you have the Align Band?
Yeah.
So what's your actual company is Align, right?
Align Methods, the trademark. That's the book. That's the name of the book coming up.
Yeah.
Align Therapy is like the LLC. So it started off doing manual therapy and coaching with people. And then it's evolved into more like public speaking and writing and content.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
So I found you on Instagram. You know, I was going through Instagram, and I was I'm always looking for methods, ways to try and tap into my own potential, like my own human potential, whether that be just living optimally, you know, where I'm not relying on medication, I'm not relying on Western medicine to live optimally. I found you on there, and I was like, man, this guy's doing it right. You know, he's doing the right things, and
What's doing
I
it
think
right?
for me, like when I was watching your body movements and stuff like that, I think that a lot of injuries, I can speak for myself having the 6 back surgeries, that for me, I think that the majority, if not all of my back surgeries were in direct relation to how my body was moving. My posture still isn't the best, but I'm becoming more aware of like where I am, or where are my shoulders? Am I tensing up? Am I like this? I mean, because I would be sleeping just tense, always tense. And I was muscling my way through everything. You know, I played football my whole life, and I was a weightlifter. My core was shit. I mean, I had a 6-pack, but my core was still horrible. 6-pack doesn't really mean anything. It was just more, my diet was good and I worked out a lot. But
what does core mean?
For me,
Yeah.
I think my core now means like my ability to hold my alignment in the proper alignment. But at the same time, being able to do power movements, whether it be my hip hinges when I'm picking up my kids even, and having my core braced, because I think if I have a strong core but the center of my body is tight and strong, I'm able to move more effectively without causing injury. And I know now, like before I'd go to pick my kids up, it's like, my back, you know. But I wasn't even focusing on where's my abs? Am I tightening down? Am I bearing down on my core to like kind of strengthen it, to keep it tight before I'm doing these heavy lifting? I'm make my 2-year-old's like 40 pounds. He's a tank, you know? And even that small of weight, 40 pounds doesn't seem like that much. But picking him up over and over and over again throughout the day it was causing me some gnarly issues, you know? So to answer your question, what is core to me? I think it's the way I understand it is the center of gravity for me, like having the center of my body being completely like just strong and able to makes me available to do other movements without causing injury. I could be way off. If
there's no like hard definition of it,
right?
But I think oftentimes, is it okay if I like pick at that?
Absolutely,
yeah,
please.
So oftentimes with our perception of core and our perception of like posture and all that, we think of it as like a static, rigid, okay, I'm like strong, I did strength, right, so I'm hard. And that's like the lessons that we get from looking at like muscle fitness magazines and all that. You see dude, super jacked, super hard, rippling abs, glistening, whatever.
Right.
You know, we don't really have a sense of like, well, what about the passive, soft aspect of that as well? Right. You know, so for the body, the muscles, you know, anything to be healthy, it has to efficiently be able to completely disengage and re-engage, right, just as powerfully.
Right.
You know, so oftentimes we get stuck in that, just like, okay, I'm rigid, I did it. Right. You know, but now you're setting yourself up for a whole nother, you know, sequel of injuries down the road.
Yeah. And that's like it's a shift of mindset, I think, for a lot of people. And it's one of the things that like the movie guys will talk, Andrew will talk about, the guy that, you know, he created the program, and he's like, it's the ability to not walk in a room and feel like you need to be rigid all the time. You know, it's like he's like, I'm not a robot. You know, like, I still move around. And so, yeah, I'm still learning and still open-minded to like learning new things and taking in new information to make it to where I can live a long and happy life virtually with as minimal pain as possible, right? 6 back surgeries, it's difficult. There's days where I stand too long, I sit too long. Driving, even for me, it's difficult. It's hard.
Yeah. Do you know Stuart McGill? Dr. Stuart McGill?
I do not.
Oh, you'll appreciate him greatly. He's been on my podcast a bunch of times. He's like known as like the leading spinal expert guy in the world. I've got a bunch of his books sitting over here.
I'm definitely gonna be checking him out.
Yeah, you'll appreciate him. He's in Canada. But I've gathered an idea from him of, I think he calls it like the pulse is what happens. So he's studying people hitting punching bags, with specifically for this, like kicking and punching and all that.
Yeah.
And what makes a really powerful puncher or kicker, anybody, what really makes them powerful is their ability to engage, disengage, and then re-engage. So when you're throwing a punch, throwing a kick, and I might be like misspeaking for him, but he's got like all sorts of studies and such people can look into. But you have to ground yourself, kind of like a backhoe. You know how they'll have like that point of support,
right?
Sometimes, so they don't pick something up and like blows the whole machine out and they just tip over.
Yeah.
So you have to find that good anchorage point, right? So that's that midsection strength and integrity, right? And that's doing your planks and your sit-ups and all that stuff. But then from there, once you get that anchorage point, then you have to, and you start engaging, you throw the punch, throw the kick, then you have to turn into a whip. So as you're coming out, you have to be able to release it, whoop, whoop, and then get hard again upon contact.
Right.
So it's that,
yeah.
Like that's what really creates the strength. And so many people, when they just, they spend too much time under the barbell, you could say, or whatever, they just focus on grinding movements and they never actually activate any kind of like real fitness.
Right.
And then you end up getting stuck in that because you just become like a grinding athlete, which is fine. But when you want to like go and play tag with your kids or go play softball or something like that, your body's like, all I do is pick up heavy weights off the ground. Right. I'm fairly dysfunctional, really. I'm like a mutant that picks up heavy weights off the ground, but it's almost like you paint yourself into a corner with it.
Absolutely. Because a lot of the stuff that we're doing, on day-to-day stuff, that's what was causing me the most pain. It wasn't so much like doing a deadlift, because like you said, like you're bracing your core, you get ready for the deadlift, you pick it up and it's like, hey, you got some strength, but I don't really feel like that's functional strength. It's not everyday movement. It's not stuff I'm going to be doing every day.
Functional is just like, I think having fun in your body, and staying pain-free and having longevity and being, 100 odd, whatever years old, and your body's still working well. Like you're not just thinking about like keeping the parts together, but if you can figure out a way that you're actually, really checking in with each of your individual joints on a daily basis, momentary basis, like right now, as we're sitting here, there's an opportunity to work on yourself.
Well, he's sitting in the splits, by the way, guys.
Yeah. It's like a nice, but it's not like to like impress anyone or anything. It's because it feels better.
Yeah.
So you can look at, we become consumed by the exercise itself, but then we forget about the whole other side of the coin, like the positions of repose, you could call it, or whatever. It's like you're tuning your body when you're just sitting on the floor here. Right. So one of the highest leverage tools that somebody can do is not spending $6,000 in some fancy self-care apparatus. Right. Just get on the fucking floor.
Yeah.
This is like huge.
Yeah. Are you big on like Bikram yoga or
I don't like the culture around Bikram very much. But I think, hot yoga is cool.
Yeah, for sure. I started doing that before this last back surgery, and I felt like I was feeling pretty good, but it was a lot of like, it felt kind of militant, almost, where it's like, it was really forced and like, no, you got to do it. And I wasn't really feeling that part of it. Yeah. So I was looking for like a teacher or a class or a group or whatever, where I can go and do Bikram yoga, hot yoga, where it's not so militant, where it's like a little bit more focused on, just the flow of movement, and it seemed like just very rigid. And I didn't really think it.
But having mechanics, so having a baseline of good mechanics allows a person to almost like grants them permission to go into flow. But I think you got to play both sides of the coin. Like if you're all flow guy and you're new age patch pant, dreadlock, whatever, I'm just like into flow, man. But you like have no support in your body, and you probably don't make your car payments on time and like all these things, like it all spills out into the rest of other parts of your world, I think. That's broken too. Absolutely. So it's like, I just want to flow. It's like, well, first figure out the rules. And then once you've really established yourself within the rules, then just break that whole container.
What got you into this? What got you into like being one of the, I would say like you're one of the premier movement guys. If you look at like guys that are, you can go around Instagram, you can go on social media or whatever and find people that are in this kind of like niche of movement.
Yeah.
But I see like some of the guys that you're associated with, and I don't think they associate with people that, like the Aubrey Marcuses of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's on the cutting edge of living optimally, whatever that may mean for other people. And I know that you have some kind of association with those guys. So what was it that got you into it? What got you into movement? Who'd you learn from? Was there like an injury that you had and you were like, hey, I need to fix myself? Or is it just something you've always been passionate about your whole life? Were you an athlete like growing up?
Yeah. So the story that I tell with that doesn't need to be like absolutely completely accurate, but it's accurate in my experience, but whatever.
Right.
I got really obsessed with bodybuilding at like a strangely young age, like 14, years old or so. And I grew up super gangly, teeth, all sorts of fucked up and, just awkward, skinny, like, dangly giraffe type body, like baby giraffe.
Right.
And then like had strange things happen at home and blah, blah, blah. And it kind of, the story that I tell with it is that like my physical home didn't necessarily feel completely safe. And then also like insecure around body stuff. So I just decided to pack on a bunch of muscle. And then that was like, okay, cool. Like fastest route to like secure, batten down the hatches, just pack on this muscle and eat every supplement you can find. And then I became really imbalanced in another direction. Started getting injuries, started becoming worse at sports, played ice hockey and stuff. And then it's been a journey of like putting the parts back together. So that led to like explosive injuries. And then from there, it was figuring out, okay, just how do we focus on longevity and like feeling well and moving well and you're feeling like comfortable in your body. Like that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Once you start to see that, it's really hard to unsee that. Like most people aren't comfortable in their body. Their body is like this foreign vehicle that they're like trying maybe possibly to cultivate a relationship, like on like Soul Cycle or something. But very, very few people, if you really look around, are really just like chilling in their body. Like they feel good, like a good relationship with it. It's like a marriage. It really, it's a marriage.
Oh yeah, you have it's the vehicle you have while you're here in this physical universe, right? So it's like,
yeah.
So did you have a teacher or someone that you initially said, hey, obviously this powerlifting bodybuilding style was not for you. It got you on the trajectory that you are now. So there's some good in that, but who was the teacher that you like looked up to and said, hey, I need to shift gears here? Did you get into yoga?
Was it teachers? Yeah. So, got into like surfing. So like you could say, it sounds like some new age shit, but like the ocean is a teacher in a sense.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, if you go to like see a gymnastic teacher, they'll hold your body in certain positions as you're going over the somersault back, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, if I just hold your hips now, jump, and you can feel that guidance from the coach.
Right. So
that's not too new age and out there to think like, oh, okay, like the coach holding his hands on my hips, it's a teacher. Well, the ocean does that too.
Right.
So by putting yourself, that's like a recommendation that I'll give to a lot of clients is like, okay, you need dance, art, ocean time.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, you need medial rotation and subscapularis activation or whatever. It's like, okay, cool. Like there's something to that too. And sometimes just putting yourself in a totally foreign experience, will be way more like physical therapy than any band exercise you could ever get.
Absolutely.
So that and getting into jiu-jitsu and, just different physical therapists, went to massage school, was studying psychology stuff, went to the Rolf Institute and got, just different teachers throughout that. A lot of like dead teachers from books and such, podcasts, became super obsessed with podcasts like 4 years ago and started my own like shortly after that.
Right.
So that was, if I wasn't super engaged with some of like my friends, my community that I lived around in like Oregon at this point, like they were fine. They were good for like rock climbing buddies and stuff like that, but they didn't have the same like ideas that really like appealed to me. So I just like doused myself in books and podcasts.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Super cool. I, it's kind of funny because going through some of the movements that I'm learning, with the Move You program, right? You do it on a video. They want you to do videos and you upload it onto this, shared like a Facebook group.
Yep.
And when you're doing the movement, for me, like I feel like I got it totally down, man. I'm totally killing this movement. And then you look at the video and you're like, no, you don't. Like it's way off. It's completely off. And it's a learn, because I think a lot of people, I can speak for myself, like I'm not aware of my body yet. I'm not aware where am I, where's my scapula? Where am I? Where's my pelvis? Am I in neutral alignment? Am I a little bit too posterior, a little anterior? I didn't know any of that shit before. None of it. And so now I think for me, that's been the biggest learn is learning where's my body? Like, what am I doing? Whether if it's surfing or if it's driving or if it's doing whatever, like, where am I, if I'm just sitting, where am I aligned, and how can I fix that?
Yeah.
And I think that's, there's a lot more to it, I think, than people think, the ocean for me would be huge, if I went out there.
Yeah,
I
it
think
slaps you around, man.
Yeah.
It also gets you cold, so you have cold thermogenesis, and there's
negatively charged ions.
Right, exactly. The air you're breathing is more electrified. It's like more vibrant air that you're taking in. Like, air is a nutrient. Right. Light's a photonutrient. Food that you put in your face is obviously a nutrient. Exercise that you're doing it's like mechanical nutrition.
Right.
And everything you're doing is feeding or taking away.
And getting rid of that, for me, would be getting rid of some of the, because I think at the core, a lot of us are control fascists. We want to control our environment, control everything around us. And when you throw yourself out into the ocean, I mean, when I was a kid, I drowned, right? I had no heart rate, wasn't breathing, seizures, the whole nine. Oh, wow. So I've had this really weird, call it irrational fear of water, open bodies of water, like scare the shit out of me, So I can go in the ocean and I want to see the shore though, I want to be close enough where I can still see the shore. And I think it was about 6-7 months ago, I went spearfishing for the first time in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. There's no land like next to me at all, and it was nerve-wracking for sure. But I think exposing yourself to those kinds of like irrational or rational fears.
Sounds totally rational.
Yeah. I mean, it was exciting. I left there feeling like liberated. Okay, that's one less thing. Yeah. That's one more thing I can check off my box of like, I let go of it,
If you can figure out how to be intrigued by like contrary action or these things that are more, it's like discomfort. Our perception of things is, what is the Buddhist saying? They said pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. So if you can start to derive joy or interest in that sensation of like challenge, like that's the big conversation. Right. If you could figure out that of like, oh yeah, like, I have you didn't see, but I have like a freezer out here that you've seen on social media or whatever probably, but so I have like my freezer sitting there. It's like 9 feet away from us right now. It's filled up with goddamn cold water. I was in it last night at like 11:30 PM. Probably I should have been getting sleep or whatever, but it was great. It was fun. And so it's like, you can practice that through little micro situations. You can learn, oh cool, like the freezer was terrible for a minute, and then it almost feels like warm for the next 4 minutes. Weird.
Right. How long are you going in for?
Around 5 minutes. This is like the normal.
Wow. That's gnarly. Because I just did, I told you I did that Wim Hof seminar 2 weeks ago. And I think we were supposed to go into the ice bath for, I think it was 2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, they want to be like gentle. And they say like a lot of like the benefits. And you also think like that's generally what will happen when you are dealing with like hundreds of people. You're like, okay, like let's make this. And they don't want their goddamn ice cubes to melt.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure.
But they say a lot of the benefits you get within the first like couple of few minutes. I was actually just with Wim like a week and a half ago, and he was like giving me the full download on like what the nighttime routine is. Yeah. And so he suggested I do like 2 to 3 minutes in the ice bath and then a hot shower, and then do that like an hour before bed or so.
That's intense. I've been doing
it's not that big a deal.
I mean, I think when you first start it, that's for me has been the learn lately is just getting after it, just starting somewhere, right? So like the cold showers, I've committed myself to the last like 3 months of every day I need to do something challenging that challenges myself. And it sounds silly to some people, but getting into a cold shower when you get up in the morning is not particularly like, it's not fun. It's not like, oh, this is great. Like you're kind of cold. I mean, you had the warm bed and you're just comfortable, and you get out and I instantly try and make myself uncomfortable. Like, okay, I'm going to get into this cold shower, and then I breathe through it while I'm in there. Toward the end of the shower, I enjoy it. And when I get out, I enjoy it more because I'm like, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm good. But it sucks when you first start, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is they don't ever start. They don't want to embrace that kind of uncomfortableness of like, hey, I'm going to get into this cold shower first thing in the morning when the water's like probably the coldest it's going to be all day.
Aubrey Marcus, you mentioned him. He made an analogy that I like actually found helpful. He's like kind of a dork. He's like into like, I don't know how to call it, like sci-fi stuff like that. Right. And, he was talking about like gamifying. I think he has a podcast episode about this, of like gamifying your life and looking at like when you get into the cold shower is like if you were a player in a game and you knew that the cold shower like boost up your health rope, whatever points.
Yeah.
You get in every time because you're like, yeah, I love the points. But because we don't have like that quantifiable, visible, like ding, 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 ding happening, like the notification on your Instagram, which is why we're all, consumed by social media, because it has that ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a drug.
If there was some way for you to just visualize that in yourself, like every time you do that contrary action, that thing that's kind of challenging for you, think of it almost like gamifying, like look at it as like a video game, and you're getting these little like green bonus points when you go in there for being, healthier, stronger, increasing dopamine or serotonin levels or natural killer cells or whatever, what have you, because that's all happening. So just reframing your perception. Perception is everything, man.
I like it, man. I like that a lot because it's true. You don't see the benefit, I guess, right away. But if you look at it that way, where it's like, hey, if I go into the shower, I'm getting some extra points for my day.
Literally, like visualize the points in the top right corner of your visual spectrum. Yeah, just see them starting to light up like a lottery game or something.
I like that. It's kind of like I like the concept of, I think Tim Kennedy says this. He wants to harder to kill fitness. I think is his thing. Yeah, and I've always said I want to be harder to kill. I want to be so optimal where it's like I'm good. You can put me in ice, you can throw me out in the snow, you can do whatever, and I'll be okay. I'll survive. And even with my fitness, like with the 6-pack surge, whatever, I can still go hike a mountain. I can still go and get on top of a mountain. I can climb Mount Kilimanjaro right now if I wanted to. I don't think my body's there yet where I want to put myself through it, but mentally I could do it. So I've always tried to challenge myself to where I can be just harder mentally, where I'm able to withstand like certain things, whether that be pain. And the first test for me was when I started to go on that journey, was when I knew I was going to get off all my pain pills and I was going to have another surgery. I wanted to do it without pain pills. And I knew it was going to be challenging. I knew it was going to be hard, but I knew coming out of it, I would be better for it mentally. Like, because then I knew if I could do that, I can do a lot of other shit. You know what I mean? Because it was excruciating. It was hard. And a part of it was, maybe some of it was me just being a stubborn asshole, just being like, no, I'm so stubborn, I'm not going to take these pills. Right. That's being honest with myself. That was part of that for sure. That got me through some of the hard nights. But the other part of it was I kept thinking about the long term. Okay, like, what's the benefit of this? Well, I'm more available to my children. I'm more available to my wife. I'm not all doped up on drugs. And I think just strengthening resolve is a real thing. You know what I mean? I think it really is, when you test yourself daily on different things, like even doing this podcast. I told you earlier, I suffered from horrible anxiety, panic attacks, and this and that. And so a lot of it was social anxiety. Sure. And so coming and meeting new people that I've never met before is challenging. It's like, wow, I've never met you before. It's my first time meeting you. And there's some anxiety that comes along with that, how you're going to be perceived. Are you going to say the right things? Are you going to do the right things? Is the podcast going to be great? And you have all these, like you said, suffering, but it's like, it's a choice. So am I going to choose to get out of my comfort zone? Just do it, So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going and meeting with people and hoping that the stories that you share and that I share, it'll reach people and change some lives, get people to change their perception or their perspective on things a little bit.
With the harder to kill thing, it's the same metaphor, literal, whatever relationship of like the being able to have be able to go in and out of active and passive with your muscles. So that ability to like snap, a punch or a kick. There's also, it's like, if all you are is harder to kill, then you'll probably be a real pain in the ass for any like feminine relationship, and being able to access and connect with your children or be able to have empathy and connection with somebody in the street or whatever. It's like, fuck that homeless guy. I'm harder to kill.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, I get that.
So there's a whole nother realm of that as well, which is like, fitness, empathy is a form of fitness, like being able to connect with someone and, so someone comes into your home or you come into their home or whatever. If all you have is one mode, then you'll be able to connect with a very small minority of people that are like you. Right. But if you have the flexibility, from like a nervous system perspective, a musculoskeletal perspective, emotional perspective, life experience, then you can tap into a wider swath. Is swath a word? A wider what's the word? Swath, I think, is a word.
I think
like
it's
fabric?
It sounds
like a piece of fabric. Like
sounds
swath?
right to me.
We got to look that shit up. Swath. That just came to me. I was channeling swath. You know what I'm saying?
I totally
so you'll be pigeonholed into one specific category if all you have is that inflexibility.
Absolutely.
I'm hard to kill. Fuck yeah. Well, cool. You'll do well with SEALs.
Right.
But beyond that, it's like, it's nice to be able to connect with like children.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've been working on. Like you mentioned empathy. That's something that I've been working on lately, is like, I think when you go through certain things in your life, right, you experience certain things, it calluses you a little bit if you allow it. And for me, I had a problem with judging other people if they weren't towing the line. It's like, even family members, it's like, oh, I have all these ailments, so I'm going to take all these pills, and I'm going to go to the doctor appointment after doctor appointment and pill after pill. And it's like, but they weren't doing any work to make themselves better.
Right.
They were just relying on other people. And I had a hard time letting go of that judgment because I had already experienced the other side. So I was like, I know that's not the way to go. I mean, I guess it wasn't the way for me to go. Yeah. And so when I saw other people struggling with it, whether it be addiction or the other stuff, I had a hard time with empathy. And so that's something that I've been trying to harness and cultivate, I guess, is empathy.
You're harnessing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Language, I think, is a powerful thing too. So like I'm trying to harness it still puts like try between you and harnessing it.
I like that.
So just something to play with. Like just be cognizant of the way that you speak. Cause it's like, I think subconsciously you're listening to yourself. Right. So as long, like you could say, I'm trying to harness it, that could become a habitual pattern that you do for the next 10 years. I'm trying to harness it. Like, bitch, didn't you say that 10 years? You're still trying? Just fucking harness it.
I like that. I like that. I think people come into your awareness, right when you need them, right when you need them, it's perfect. Because you're absolutely right. 100%. I think I felt kind of, out of sorts with, because I was in the military, so I was around a lot of that kind of mindset, the SEAL kind of, I wasn't a SEAL, but a lot of that mindset of like just closed. There's closed and hard. And there was one way and the only way. And it was, you just push through this, you push through that.
Well, sometimes you need to be, because if not, like you might get shot in the face.
Oh, totally. Totally. But I don't think there was the other side of that, the flip side of that. There wasn't a lot of empathy. There wasn't a lot of, there was no softness. Everything was hard. Everything was hard. Yeah. And I think, for me, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be that guy that harnesses empathy, not tries.
I'm being that guy.
Being that guy.
I'm going to be that guy is still a gap.
Got it.
So I'm going to be that guy for the next 10 years. I'm going to be that guy. Yeah. At some point you'll be that guy, but now it's been 10 years.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm becoming that guy.
I'm going to leave this podcast like mind blown. You know what I mean? Totally. I like it, man.
That's good.
So what's the, so you got into the movement stuff. You started the Align method. What's your mission statement? What's your passion? Like, what are you trying to, I mean, I know for yourself, obviously, I mean, I can look at you. You can usually look at somebody and be like, they're obviously doing at least some of the right things. Cause I mean, you're a specimen, dude. Let's be real. You look great. So you're doing something. I mean,
genetics are part of that.
I mean, part of it. Yeah. But that's like one part of the equation. I mean, there's diet and exercise and movement and mindset and all the other things I think go into the equation. Yeah. So what are you trying to do? What are you doing?
What am I doing?
What are you doing?
It's written on the front of the website. So it's like the Align mission or Align philosophy or whatever. So what we're doing is helping people inhabit their bodies in a more powerful way. So being able to actually, like, every moment is an opportunity to cultivate your body, cultivate your mind is a thing that I say a lot. So as we're sitting here, it's like an opportunity for me to explore different nooks and crannies of the joints throughout my body. So most of us, we end up outsourcing all of that to chairs that cradle us, or, you travel in any kind of seat, or the couch that you're on, and you're staring into your cell phone, hunching over, and there becomes this break between you and your body. Like there's a separation there. And so the whole mission goal, what we're doing with Align is helping people start to kind of chip away at reestablishing a relationship with themselves at any given moment throughout the day. So as opposed to needing to pay $250 for like a Pilates or yoga membership, you can just start to literally become a little bit more like yoga. So as we're sitting here, like the whole time I've been, did like a hamstring stretch thing, and then I was in like a Sukhasana position, and then it's in a 90-90 position. So I'm like getting work done throughout this. Yeah. So to me, I just don't, it's like we have limited time, so for me to commit to writing a book or this interview or whatever you call this conversation, and just be committed to that and forget about like myself, and forget about cultivating my own body, that just sounds like a shitty decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
So giving people the tools to be able to do that.
So every day, this is what you're doing, no matter what it is you're doing, whether it be brushing your teeth, doing a podcast, driving. I mean, how do you do that when you're driving? I mean, because being from California, it's
super easy. I got a whole video thing on it. So you put like a little pillow or like a little foam roller or something behind your thoracic spine, which is like the middle 12 vertebra. So like the space behind your heart. So that way you'll be pushed a little bit forward. Most seats are bucket seats, which is like garbage. So you drive around like your fancy Porsche, whatever nonsense, and then you're like hunched over into this position that literally decreases testosterone, increases stress hormones, puts you into like a defeated position. Then the car, by being in the car, that makes you think you have a big dick or whatever, that like increases testosterone. So there's kind of this inherent conflict with it. It's interesting. So just simply starting to change the shape of your seat. So throw something behind your thoracic spine. And from there, you could start to play with like bring your butt cheeks all the way to the corner of the seat. So now your car seat is like the bottom of a squat position, as opposed to like a proper bottom of the squat position, as opposed to being like hunched over in the position that every coach would be like, no, like don't do that. You're going to blow out your back.
Right.
All right. You're going to need back surgery.
Yeah.
If you do that all the time, don't do that.
Right.
So that's a start. Then from there, you can start to play with creating more of like a relationship, engaging the backside of your shoulder girdle, which is chronically disengaged throughout like all of modern world, because our world's sitting in front of this little cube in front of us. So you could hold onto the steering wheel every now and again and like break the steering wheel, like really like twist, create that external rotation, activating that whole posterior side of the shoulder. You could play with doing an isometric, meaning like holding one position for a while. Contraction of your hips. We're chronically like disengaged in the back of the hips. So glute med and minimus and max, all the butt muscles. You can push your knees out against the side of the the walls in the car. So you can be in the car in like actually kind of like fitnessing a little bit.
Right.
As I'm in the car, don't recommend this to anybody, but if there's like space on the road, I'll put the car in cruise control and like bring my legs up on the seat. I don't think that's a good idea for anybody. I'm not saying that's like what you should do, but that's what I do.
Totally, man. I mean, whatever works, because I think a lot of people can relate. So if there's one thing that you could tell somebody that is, because if you just Google back issues, a shit ton of information is going to come at people. Like things that you can do, whether it be orthotics, whether it be a back pillow or whatever. If there's something that you think could be not a one size fits all approach. Well, if someone was starting out like with movement and learning about their body, where would you tell them to start?
Spend time on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with a pillow, without a pillow, just
pillows, lots of pillows. Yeah. Make it easy. Okay. You don't need to like, cool. I listened to some Seal Fit podcast, whatever. I think Seal Fit's actually, that's Mark Devine's thing. I didn't mean to shit on that, but whatever. I just kind of put words together, right. Some like hardened, masculine, whatever podcast thing. And they suggested that I sleep on rocks. You're like, cool, fucking enjoy. Like that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I would recommend instead, like slowly work yourself into the hard thing, because if it's too hard, like we just need to live at the border, so you first be sensitive enough with yourself to know like, where do my borders lie? And then from there, once you figure that out, then just live there. And if you live there all the time or regularly, then they slowly expand. So we're sitting on the floor, get a bunch of pillows, get like, I have like this big floor cushion thing over here in the corner, and I have like poofs and stuff like that. I have the biomat sitting on the ground, so it brings you down to the ground. I have cushions around the table, so I don't actually have like a traditional dinner table. All I have is the only options in my house are on the couch for like guests, and I use it as well because it's just an elevated floor, is being on the ground.
Yeah, totally.
It's not a big deal.
So do you think it is a one size fits all? So if you have guys like or girls that are having I've had 6 back surgeries, right? So if it works for somebody who hasn't had any back surgery, or any back issues, or any other injuries or ailments, is it going to work for me the same way it would work for somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just living at the border, right? So yeah, like everybody has the option to deadlift, for example. But for some people, because they're really tall, you might want to raise the weights up and get one of those like big like horse, whatever you call them, like the big wheels that raise it up, or like put the barbell or the weights extending from the barbell on top of some other weights to raise it up off the ground, or maybe you just don't have the integrity to even do that. So you need to like raise it way high up. So you start off, your deadlift is like 3 inches of movement. Great. That's 3 inches more than what you'd done before. You know, and then eventually you're at 5 inches of movement, then 12 inches of movement. Then you can do a freaking deadlift after 6 months or whatever.
Totally.
All that matters is that you're living at the border. And then from there, you need to actually do some damn research and get a coach or, you know, whatever the thing is, online program, something, hang out with people that you respect, to kind of give you the guidance of like, okay, you know, Ari Mazza, you said you listened to that episode.
Right.
One of the things that he said in there that I liked was you can't read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really helpful to have someone from the periphery to say like, what's my label look like? Like, where are my borders? Because I don't know. I haven't developed a relationship with myself because I'm focused on like paying my bills.
Right.
You know, so hire a coach, I think is great. But use them as a direction change. Don't use them as a crutch to lean on.
Right. Because I know I can speak for myself. It's like, I don't know where my borders are right now. You know, I'm not there yet. But I will be there. You know
where some borders are.
Yeah. Some.
Again, that's a story.
It is.
I don't know where my borders are. Right. So you can start with like, what's the positive aspect? What do I know?
Right.
You know, I'm not like trying to lecture you. I'm just saying it's
I appreciate
interesting thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think language is important, and what story we're telling ourselves, what story we're telling other people, what we're putting out there. You know, it sounds like a very, like after saying it, hearing you repeat it back to me, it sounded more passive the way that I was saying it, and it sounds more in control the way that you're saying it.
It feels better. Like you feel it in your dick.
Right. I mean, true story.
When you say something like, I mean, I'm just joking, but I'm joking serious. But when you say something like, yeah, like, you know, just whatever, saying something in an empowered way, saying something in a way that, you know, I'm doing it. Yeah. That feels vastly different than, yeah, you know what? At some point I'm going to do it. You're like, oh, that felt shitty. You know, there's something really nice where it's just like, yeah, I'm doing it. You're like, sure. Okay. Like I can feel it in like my throat, you know, whatever. I'm like, you know, I'm a bit of a weirdo, but like I can feel it in my body.
Right.
Yeah, I think other people probably can too.
I think it's part of like doing stuff and being like who you want to be, who you're destined to be. I think a lot of that has to do with who you're surrounding yourself with too.
Of course.
Huge. You know what I mean? Because I can tell just from sitting down with you and talking with you, like I know that I'm going to leave this conversation and it's going to be on my mind for the rest of the day for sure, and probably the next week. And being more aware, what story am I telling myself? What story am I putting out there? Well, like, am I talking, even the way I'm speaking, is that empowered or is it not? Like, you know, and, so it's a good takeaway for me is like, be more mindful of that. You know what I mean? Cause I have ideas in my head of like where I want to be. And I'm aware enough to say that, I know that I'm not where I want to be right now, but I'm trying to find a way to like finding a way to change the wording to that, to where it sounds more empowered and makes me more empowered, you know?
Yeah. I'm in the process of changing the wording. I'm changing the wording. There's just a bunch of unnecessary words.
Right.
Like, why pack them in there?
Right. Is this something that you've picked up from other people, or is this something that you've just learned over the years? Like,
probably other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reading books about like NLP, like neurolinguistic programming.
Yeah.
Is like a, you know, I think Richard Bandler and Grinder. I forgot the first name of him. I think I might have messed the Richard part up, but yeah, NLP is really great. There is, I mean, just hanging around people that are into this stuff. Like, I've like an NLP term. I guess NLP is like my main thing that I've been really engaged with in the past. But modeling is a term from NLP. And so I'll like model certain people, you know, so essentially like someone that I think is really interesting. I will like in a creepy way study them. And so I'll just go on a, you know, like a bender on like, say Tony Robbins, because he's in relation to this subject. Yeah. He kind of like,
it's like a master of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he kind of created his own form of NLP, but his stuff is based off NLP. You know, so I'll like just model him for a while. I haven't done that for a while, but he was someone that I went through, like, you know, I binged on that. Anytime they would say a word that I didn't understand, I would look it up, you know, and I'd like practice it. And then eventually you kind of come to a point where you feel like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I feel like I kind of like get that, you know, and then you're like, okay, cool. Now let's, you know, look into somebody else.
I dig it, man. It's really cool. I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. First one being, if you had one person or one book that changed the course of your life or that inspired you the most, who would it be and why?
I really like the book. My ongoing response for this, it might not be my like true response anymore, but it's the one that's the easiest for me to go to is Man's Search for Meaning. So Viktor Frankl.
Oh yeah. Great.
That's like a really good one. All about like just changing your perception and such. And then Alan Watts is like somebody that I've been really obsessed with. I've modeled the shit out of Alan over the years. I've listened to like thousands of hours of Alan Watts at this point.
His guided meditations are amazing. I love it. Yeah.
And I love that he's like a real dude. He's like an alcoholic and died of like, liver failure and all this. He's like going through shit. And he's just, everything he says is like immaculate. Like all of his books are great. So I really like Alan and Viktor.
Okay. Next question is, if you had one regret in your life, I keep playing with this question, but if there's one thing that you could tell somebody or a group of people that they have a fork in the road and it's like, hey, look, you can go this way, you can go this way. I went this way and it sucked ass. So I'm going to save you that heartache and I'm going to show you like, this is my biggest takeaway. So if you had one regret or one thing you could teach people, like just one like pearl of,
I would have started doing gymnastics as a kid. Yeah. Like wrestling and gymnastics as opposed to like ice hockey and bodybuilding, but because I jacked myself up from bodybuilding, ice hockey was fine. But it's still pretty imbalanced in itself. But gymnastics is just such a beautiful way to you just explore so many different capacities of the body in a fairly symmetrical way, which is great. So you set yourself up from that position. You're like, whatever you do throughout the rest of your life, you're going to be like way, way ahead of the curve of most people. Right. And then wrestling is great too, because you learn like distribution of weight and how to like, really, one, you're connecting with another person, which is great. You're kind of learning to like fight. You're learning to like go through hard things, and just learn how to leverage your weight in a proper way. Yeah, it's not very like deep. I'm sure I have lots of like kind of out there answers as well, but that's something I think about a lot.
I dig that because it's something that I've thought about because I played football my whole life, and like I have 4 boys, and I'm thinking like,
oh yeah, get them. Gymnastics and wrestling and dancing and improvisation and acting and theater and music. That's the shit that matters. Right. Football's fairly whack.
No, it's totally whack. I mean, I'll be the first to say it.
Soccer's pretty cool, like football, that kind of football. Because you're running and you're cutting and you're pivoting and you're just run down the field. It's like there's a reason it's like the most popular sport in the world. Right. American football, there's a reason it hasn't really caught on.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, my oldest is 11. He wants to play football, or he was talking about playing football, and I said, absolutely not. You're not playing football. He wants to play. So now he's playing flag football. I just signed him up for flag football, which I think is better because he's running, he's getting some exercise, he's doing his thing. But yeah, I looked up gymnastic bodies. So they have like a little program you can do, and I'm always looking at different ways. But I think it's funny you said that because it has been something that's been on my mind lately. What am I going to have my boys doing growing up to make sure that to help in their journey of being functional and being optimal? And it's not going to be playing football.
Yeah, I can tell you that much. Theater, music, gymnastics, wrestling. You're going to be a pretty dope human being if you do that as a kid.
That's awesome, man. So, where can people find you? What are you working on now? And kind of like, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, the thing I'm working on right now is an online program. So being able to, allow people to explore all these things that I don't really think we really talked about too many things in relation to that specifically, but how to integrate these mechanics into your daily life. Self-care to unwind the positions of like forward head posture and collapsed forward shoulders and spine, like the hunchback spine, and knees collapsing in, and feet, like a collapse anywhere is a collapse everywhere. And so we formulated a program specifically like self-care and movement to unwind that shit. And then I'm working on a book right now, but that's not for like another year. That'll be out.
Do you have a title yet or anything?
Yeah, the Align Method.
Align Method?
Yeah, the Align Method. Yeah.
Nice. So a year? Where can people buy it when it comes out? Spring
2020. Oh, whatever. It'll be everywhere. It's like a proper published, like it's a real book.
Dude, that's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm
super cool.
Yeah.
So on Instagram, they can find you.
Align Podcast. Yeah. So the podcast, that's like my, I've been doing that for like, I don't even know how long, 3.5 years, something like that. Probably 3.5 years. I was going to say 4, but I don't think it's 4. So Align Podcast is the social media. So Instagram is what I'm most active on.
Okay. Yeah. Is that your, what's your main, like I said, main source of income? What's your main like thing that you're doing that you're working on right now? So like, would it be your book, your podcast, or the Align Method? Like, are you're coaching?
All of it.
All of it, all the above?
Yeah. I mean, I just got like, a nice boost from the book, which is fun. So that's kind of like a full-time gig. I need to like write the damn book, write the best book I possibly can. I'm working with a co-writer too, which is helpful. Online program stuff, podcast stuff, all that. And then like, speaking and workshops and such. It's all up the same river.
Well, I'm excited to read that book for sure. Because like I said, I'm always looking for like new methods of like, exploring myself, where am I currently? And I think reading stuff like that is going to help me kind of hone in on that. And so I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. It's always exciting for me when I reach out to people on social media that I feel like, oh, like they're busy, they got a huge following. They're going to reach back out. They're not going to hit me back. And so it's always exciting when you get a response back, And so I appreciate that. I genuinely appreciate that you got back to me and said like, yeah, man, come on out.
I was with a friend. She has 500,000 people on her Instagram. And so I was like, I just assumed she never commented back. And she comments back to every single person on her post. She gets like, 400 odd comments on her post. She comments back to everyone.
It's fascinating.
She's like, there's my people. Like the people that are commenting, the people that are like engaged, like that's your core tribe.
Yeah.
So like focus on nurturing that and you have like a legitimate community with you. Yeah. And I think there's something to like, knowing when to outsource and knowing, not to dilute yourself by doing things that isn't like your highest purpose.
Right.
And I think there's something to like leading from, what do they say? Like leading from the front or, walk beside me, not behind me, whatever. Like just be a part of the group. Like if people are reaching out to you, it's a good opportunity to connect.
Yeah, well, I genuinely appreciate you, man. And I'm excited about reading your book. Oh. And I'm going to get on this aligned method, man.
Get on the method, man.
I'm going to get on it.
Get on that floor.
So thank you.
That's how you know I'm not bullshitting you, because you can't sell a floor. At some point, I'll sell like cushions and shit like that. But like, I'm not selling the fucking floor, man.
Right. Right.
Yeah. $9.99. You'll get a floor from Align Therapy. Yeah. Just get a floor. It's good for you.
That same thing, like Wim said the same thing in a weirdest thing. It's like, it's so simple. People are like, oh, it has to be bullshit, because I'm selling you breath, I'm selling you breathing and getting an ice, and he's like, it is that simple.
It is that simple. Yeah. Anything that's simple, that's where the truth is. As something becomes more complex, it just becomes, it's a paradox. The more complex a thing is, the more limiting it is, Yeah. It's like a yoga swing, like I have a yoga swing sitting here beside us, like 2 feet away now. So from that's like, it's just a piece of goddamn fabric hanging off the ceiling. So you can do so much with it versus that compared to like, what do they call the inversion tables? Inversion table, all you can do is invert. Right. It's like $600 and I think they're fine. Get an inversion table, whatever you got, but it takes a bunch of space. You got to put it together. There's like all these doohickeys and whatnot. And then you do one thing, put your ankles in, invert. Whereas with this, it's just a little piece of fabric. Oh, it's like, oh, cool. Options open up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's good.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, man. And look forward to talking with you again, man.
Cool.
For sure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.